Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda, and in this video training, I'm going to break down the difference between the Emergency Money for the People Act and the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act of 2020. The first one is a proposal that suggests a $2,000 per month payment to most Americans for a finite period of time during this crisis. And the second suggests that rent and mortgage payments be completely cancelled during this current crisis. Now, I've seen a lot of discussions talking about which one's cheaper, which one's more expensive. So I think it's better for us to focus on what could potentially be a better solution for everyone listening, what could be better for the country, and more importantly, what is viable, what allows us to get back on our feet. Before I get into that, let me be clear. I believe that the best solution is for all of us to get back to work as quickly as possible. Amen to that. So we need to get back to work as quickly as possible. But if this continues for an extended period of time, then we need to be able to discuss and hopefully see one of these options come to fruition. So with that being said, let's get right into it. The $2,000 per month stimulus payment for Americans who make less than $130,000 a year with $500 a month for dependents living with the main person who gets the money, which could be children, which could be seniors that are living with the primary beneficiary. That's a significant amount of money. And the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act of 2020 simply says that for a finite period of time, you won't have to pay your rent. You're not going to be responsible for your rent payments. You're not going to accrue debt on your rent payments. It's not going to impact your credit score. And it's definitely something that you're not going to pay any fees or any penalties for. Now, the reason that I believe that the $2,000 a month plan or a version of it or a tiered version of it for a finite period of time, not indefinitely, makes most sense is simply because that will give us the opportunity to make intelligent and make reasonable and make good decisions about that money. It'll allow a lot of us to pay off our college loans. It'll allow a lot of us to pay off our debt. It'll allow many of us to perhaps start a business, and it'll give us opportunities. I talked about breaking free from the cycle, from the vicious cycle of poverty. I've gone into a lot of detail about that in the previous video training, so you definitely want to check that out. But the most important thing is it'll give individuals options. It'll allow individuals to make decisions, because I feel that when a person makes decisions, it essentially empowers them. I can talk about the $2,000 per month plan with confidence because I learned how to manage money, and I think that was one of the most powerful skills that allowed me to be successful. Now, the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act of 2020, the reason I'm not a big fan of it, even though it's a very personal subject to me because I've been homeless, I know how it is to live in a car, and I have been in situations where I didn't have a roof over my head. It did happen to me at one point in time. So even though it's a personal subject to me, I believe that the fundamental act of paying rent is something that we should all feel responsible for, because it is that responsibility, at least for me, I can speak for myself, that allowed me to become better with my financial management skills, that allowed me to better manage my life and eventually build a business. And today I own multiple rental properties. I am a landlord today because I was a broke homeless person once. The fact that I needed to come up with the money to pay rent, the fact that I needed to be responsible to have a roof over my head, that made me responsible, and that made me the successful person that I am. At least I would like to think so. Now, let's talk about the $2,000 per month proposed stimulus plan. What that's also going to do is that's going to allow people to have a fundamental foundation for their life, because once someone is stuck in the vicious cycle of poverty, it's very hard for them to get out of it. If you're poor, you can't get access to good food, you can't get access to good healthcare, you definitely don't have opportunities, you're stuck with jobs that you don't like. But if you have those opportunities, if you had some sort, at least a temporary, I'm talking about at least temporary, I'm not talking about permanent universal basic income. If you had some sort of a temporary relief, it would allow you to get out of the vicious cycle of poverty. Just saying, now rents on the other hand, just saying, hey, you don't have to pay your rents for some period of time, it's almost like a band-aid solution. I don't think it's going to make people think and take the actions that'll take them to the next level. Now, don't get me wrong, if someone gets relief either through some sort of assistance if they desperately need it, or from the landlord, I'm all for that. I don't want anyone to to be homeless. I don't want anyone to not have a roof over their head. That's not what this is all about. This is comparing the two and trying to find a solution that is viable for the person and that's fair and that's good for us as an economy. So the $2,000 per month plan, again, there are supporters and detractors to it. That plan will allow individuals to make decisions with their money, that will allow individuals to potentially start businesses, potentially do jobs that they like, which is so crucial. But this the rent cancellation part of it, it's not really going to motivate an individual to go out there and start a business or do something that could elevate the local economy, that could elevate them and their lifestyle. It's just a little sort of like a bonus. It's like getting a gift almost, and it's more of a temporary thing, whereas this could be more of a permanent boost in the person's lifestyle. Now, I know everyone's thinking, okay, $2,000 a month is more than just having your rents waived, and I get that, but again, every situation is different. And if in some cases $2,000 a month is going to be more than enough, but in some cases, depending on where you live, it may or may not be enough. This isn't about comparing dollars to dollars. I'm trying to draw a difference between the two approaches, between the two proposals, and present what I think makes a whole lot more sense. Now, also, there are some conditions built into the $2,000 per month stimulus plan. The conditions are that you should be making less than $130,000 a year. If you're a single filer, you should be making less than $260,000 a year. Pretty high limit in my opinion, but then that's open to discussion. But the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act applies to every American, applies to everyone. So essentially it says, well, you know what? It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter where you live. You could be living in a place where your rent is through the roof, or you could be living in a tiny apartment. And I believe that this fundamentally is not good, because it might actually reward people for excess, for unnecessary excess. So if you've been responsible and you've been living in an apartment that's well below your means, and then you start getting rent waivers for that apartment because of this Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act of 2020, you're going to tell yourself, hey, wait a minute, why didn't I get that more expensive apartment? Why didn't I get that ocean view apartment? Why didn't I get a big townhouse? Why didn't I get this big house and I could have lived beyond my means? Because that person who got it is now getting all their rent payments from the federal government. So I feel that just doesn't make sense. In fact, even if you were to slice and dice the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act of 2020, it's just a small and it doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion, but some sort of assistance, even if it's temporary, even if it's small, even if it's tiered, will allow individuals to get to the next level, to be empowered, as opposed to just saying, hey, here's your rent or your mortgage payment waived. Now, here's the other thing. This is the big one. The $2,000 per month proposed stimulus is going to come presumably from the federal government that will distribute it directly to the citizens. So it's directly the federal government helping the citizens, kind of similar to the stimulus checks and the CARES Act and all the small business loans and the 3P loans, the Paycheck Protection Program loans. It's direct federal assistance. Whereas this program here, the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act of 2020 is going to be so challenging to pull off. I mean, you're expecting perfect coordination with the state government. You're expecting perfect coordination between the federal government and the state government. I mean, it's going to be a huge challenge to pull off. And can you now think about this, with the millions and millions of people who have mortgages in the country? What are you going to do? Are you going to expect the state government to make sure that those millions of mortgages are managed properly? Because ultimately there could be local disputes, there could be local arguments. The Office of the Inspector General locally could get involved. It's going to overwhelm the state governments. As it is, the local state governments are completely overwhelmed. They're probably going to see budget cuts. They're probably going to have to make some changes. They're going to have budget deficits because of everything that's going on because of this crisis. So this proposal, the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, is something that is going to be challenging to execute, and it's a no-go as far as I'm concerned. So with that being said, I hope you benefited from this analysis. I hope this was valuable to you. If this was, Please click like, please click subscribe, please click the notification button. Please share my video on Facebook or other channels, and please comment below. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'm happy to step in and assist in any way that I can, because at the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that whatever happens, and I do feel that we'll see other proposals like this if this drags on for a long time. Whatever happens, I think that we all need to stand together. We need to be fair. We need to be just. We need to do the right thing. And I think that one of my favorite movies, there's a quote from one of my favorite movies.
So it was only when your world was threatened with destruction that you became what you are now.
And the quote basically says, on the precipice is when we change. In fact, here's the quote.
You say we're on the brink of destruction, and you're right. But it's only on the brink that people find the will to change. Only at the precipice do we evolve.
I love that. So I hope that was beneficial. Thank you so much. Again, please click like, please click subscribe, please click the notification button, smash those buttons, and please comment below. I'm looking forward to reading all your comments. Thank you so much.